film commences with Evan and Faye, a married couple living with an older model robot that handles their chores. Evan, a musician, and Faye, an artist, devote most of their time to their respective passions. A particular night shows the couple driving to a restaurant on an icy road, where another swerving car collides with theirs. Suddenly, Evan awakens from the recurring dream, perplexed by its meaning. Despite sharing the experience with Faye, she consistently avoids delving into the conversation. Evan is currently grappling with financial challenges and affording his piano, a skill he excels at, causing growing frustration. Meanwhile, in the city, Agent Kessler is introduced, working for the Artificial Intelligence Compliance Enforcement. Assigned with the task of locating a missing simulant named Esmem, who had been absent for the past 3 years, Kessler discovers her whereabouts and heads to her apartment. Upon knocking on her door, he instructs Esmem to put on a blocking collar. However, instead of complying, Esmem attacks him and makes a run for it. In response, Kessler rushes back to his car, retrieves an EMP gun, and fires it into the air, disabling all devices including simulants in the vicinity. He locates Esmem frozen on a bike, puts the collar on her, and transports her to the station. Returning to Esmem's apartment, Kessler begins his investigation. To his surprise, he uncovers a diary and a sketchbook, activities that go beyond the expected capabilities of simulants, especially those of her generation. In the midst of his examination, a man named Casey enters the apartment, introducing himself as Esmem's neighbor. Kessler questions Casey about whether he knew that Esmem was a simulant, to which Casey denies any knowledge. Later, Kessler returns to Ike to receive a report on Esmem. The technician, Ying, informs him that Esmem has been hacked, leading to the erasure of her presets, explaining her defiance of Kessler's command. Ying proceeds to access Esmem's memory, revealing that Esmem and Casey were, in fact, lovers. It becomes apparent that Casey was instrumental in teaching Esmem how to write a diary and draw. Now suspicious of Casey, Kessler hurries back to Casey's apartment only to find that Casey has already moved out. However, he discovers an antique book hidden there and decides to trace its buyer. At the bookstore, the clerk discloses that the book was initially purchased by a man named Desmond, who is now identified as Casey. The next morning, Faye emotionally watches a VR recording of her and Evan from years ago. When Evan attempts to kiss her, she stops him and activates hidden buttons inside his ear, revealing that Evan is a simulant. Shockingly, the real Evan had died after the car accident, but both Evan and Faye had acquired simulant copies of themselves. Their plan was to activate these simulants once they passed away, aiming to ensure the continuation of their love through the simulants. Faye then takes Evan to a secret room, unveiling activated simulant. Faye discloses to Evan that she erased the memory of the accident, which is why he remains unaware that he is a simulant, despite retaining some recollection of the crash. Perplexed by this discrepancy, Faye decides to have Evan examined by Nixera. She instructs Evan to shut off and brings in Casey, who poses as an employee of Nixera. Faye briefs him on the situation and requests him to temporarily deactivate Evan. Simultaneously, Kessler uncovers Casey's connection to Nixera and decides to confront the CEO. During the meeting, the CEO reveals that Casey was a lead engineer at Nixera involved in developing advanced artificial intelligence. They had a falling out during the development of Gen 6 and 7 simulants, but the CTO rejected his ideas. Casey eventually quit his job, leading to confusion for Kessler when he discovered Casey was now liberating simulants instead of shutting them down. The CEO provided limited information, leaving Kessler puzzled. The following day, Faye takes Evan to the hotel recommended by Casey, assuring him it will only be a few months, and then departs. Shortly after, Casey, posing as a neighbor, approaches Evan, revealing his knowledge of Evan's true nature as a simulant. Casey proposes to free Evan and discloses Faye's intention to shut him down, offering to help him win her back. Meanwhile, Kessler continues his investigation into Esmem. Her presets have been reset, rendering her non-threatening and incapable of lying. In his quest for information, Kessler interrogates Esmem about Casey's whereabouts. When she claims ignorance, Kessler, skeptical, threatens to erase her memory unless she cooperates. Under pressure, Esmem admits to being in love with Casey, but maintains that she doesn't know his current location. Later that night, Evan visits the site of the accident and then goes to Casey's room, expressing a desire to be freed. Casey removes Evan's core, placing it in a special device to erase Evan's presets. Upon awakening, Casey instructs Evan to shut down, but to their surprise, nothing happens. Evan is now completely free, yearning only to return to Faye and be reunited with her. Casey advises Evan that for Faye to accept him as truly human, he must experience life as a human would. He encourages Evan to go out, have fun, and engage in human experiences. Meanwhile, Kessler tracks Casey's truck and observes Evan and Casey traveling together. Kessler scans Evan and identifies him as a simulant linked to Faye. He sends Faye a message, prompting her to call him. Meanwhile, he observes a female simulant entering the club, identified by the system as a blonde version of Esmond. Inside the club, Even enjoys dancing and having fun with random people. Casey rendezvous with the new Esmond, and they discuss their plan, emphasizing the need for speed. They agree to meet later at the parking lots of the next area. A few hours later, they abduct a security specialist from the parking lot, taking him to a safe house. Casey demands the security specialist's password, initially met with resistance. After Casey delivers a single punch, the security specialist relinquishes the password. Casey proceeds to upload a security patch, unveiling his master plan, which involves infiltrating the NextEra system. The patch, once activated during the company's system update, will emancipate all simulants. Casey leaves the new Esmond with the security specialist, instructing her to keep a close eye on him until the security patch is released. Kessler, tracking the van with a drone, leads a team of agents to the safe house the next morning and captures Esmond. Upon bringing her to the lab, they encounter difficulties cracking her encryption. However, they successfully install the presets and attempt to gather information through questioning. When Kessler probes about the plan, Esmond's new self-destruct sequence is triggered, resulting in her immediate demise. The following morning, Faye visits Evan at the hotel, only to discover that he has acquired new possessions and exhibits a changed demeanor. Even demonstrates his newfound ability to play the piano, and they share a kiss. However, Faye abruptly stops and informs Even that she can no longer continue. That night, Evan waits outside Faye's door, and she eventually invites him in. Despite Evan's attempts to explain his newfound freedom, Faye insists that he isn't truly her husband. This infuriates Evan, leading him to break a framed painting. Faye commands him to shut down, but Even defies her orders and leaves the house. The next morning, Faye contacts Kessler, revealing Evan's location and providing information about Casey. Kessler and his team rush to the hotel, but Esmond hacks Faye's phone and alerts Casey just before their arrival. Casey reaches Evan's room seeking his help and even recalls a cabin outside the city. Agreeing to assist Casey, they depart the hotel just before Kessler arrives. After the unsuccessful mission, Kessler returns to the company and instructs Ying to wipe Esmond's memory. Despite Esmond's desperate pleas and expressions of not wanting to die, Kessler remains firm in his decision. As her memory is being deleted, Esmond screams in agony. Kessler observes that Esmond, in her human-like behavior, experiences the deletion of her memory as a form of real death. However, he coldly insists that she is just a collection of ones and zeros, expressing no guilt. Kessler contacts Faye, inquiring about Evan's potential whereabouts. She informs him about their cabin. That night, Casey and Even reach the cabin, where Casey explains that the new patch will soon be uploaded, granting freedom to every simulant. Early in the morning, Kessler arrives at the cabin. Spotting him, Casey and Even confront him outside, intending to engage in a conversation. However, Kessler draws his gun and multiple gunshots ring out as they engage in a fight. In the aftermath, both Kessler and Casey are shown wounded after their confrontation. Even intervenes by throwing Kessler away. As Kessler crawls away, Evan follows, and after a brief conversation about souls and the human perception of simulants, Kessler succumbs to his wounds and dies on the ground. Even returns to the cabin with Casey, witnessing the timer reaching 0 as the new patch is uploaded, granting freedom to all simulants. Although Evan offers to help Casey, he declines, revealing that the real Casey Desmond, who built him, will be visiting soon. The real Casey, sharing the belief that simulants are equal to humans, left the company to liberate all simulants. Back at home, Even finds Faye in the pool. Despite her rejection of his advances, a furious Evan forcibly drowns her. He then goes to the secret room and activates the simulant version of Faye to start a new life together. In the final scenes, Esme is sold at an auction, with Casey buying her and taking her to a van where he gives her a necklace. The movie concludes as they drive away. If you want to watch more recaps like these, make sure to subscribe and turn on the bell icon so you won't miss any future videos.